Welcome back to the Inner Owl Wellness Podcast, where we explore the inner realms within us to create higher dimensions of health and wellness in our lives. And today we have a very, very special guest with us today. We have a Afro Chicana holistic designer and artist. She's focused on wellness in the built environment and regenerative practices as founder and chief of Holistic Spaces Design Consultancy. And she navigates between the realms of tangible and virtual, seamlessly crafting deeply personal experiences. She offers design consultation, climate discussion techniques, as well as design assist and holistic design literacy. My friends, I introduce you to my new friend, Steffi.
Hi, everybody.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Steffi. I really appreciate it.
I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah.
I mean, we're already having way too much fun.
Yeah.
So.
We were thinking about just, she's into the holistic stuff, which we want to get into in the space design. We were just thinking of maybe singing on this podcast, but I don't know if we should go that direction. Maybe later in the podcast. We'll come back there, maybe. But I do want to start with kind of your expertise and what you do, holistic design. And when I first heard about this, I was like, it made sense to me. Like, obviously, holistic health and wellness includes like how your space looks like, because your external space is also like a reflection of like your internal space, right? And so what you have outside will affect you inside and vice versa. But to have that like name of holistic space was really just fascinating to me. And I just want to start by asking you, like, what is holistic space and like why is it so important?
Sure. Thank you so much for asking that.
For sure.
I really feel like a holistic space is one that focuses on both the wellness of the people within the built environment, as well as...
Can you just pull the mic down a little?
As well as respect.
Like that. That's good. That's better.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
As well as respect to the environment that is in terms of like creating the space so that so that you're bringing the outside in for biophilic reasons, and also for reasons that have to do with their circadian rhythm and overall health, but also in respect to Mother Nature, in respect to the environment. And so that comes with regenerative practices and what we like to call sustainability. Right? I have this whole turmoil with the word sustainability, but we'll get into that soon.
Yeah.
But it's really about having respect in creating your space with Mother Nature, as well as focusing on the wellness of the people.
That's really cool. So there's almost like a natural way to live, not just with our bodies, but also with the space that we create. And is that kind of, it makes sense to me that that's very intuitive and very unique to each individual. But is there like a format or something that you kind of use in your work and how you navigate this and how you apply it for like different people? Like, is there one similar way to go about things?
Sure. I mean, there are a few different building standards that I utilize. I also study neuroscience and architecture to sort of figure out what these neuroscientists are finding in their research and in the science. The science is kind of slow, but there is evidence-based design principles that we can utilize. For example, my name is Steffi Reyes Thomas, Well AP. I have the Well AP behind my name, and that is with the International Well Building Institute, and they have their own set of building standards, and it's all based on wellness within the built interior. So they really focus on air quality, water quality. There's a mindfulness aspect to it, so that really focuses on biophilia and the circadian rhythm and things that I mentioned before, and we'll get into that soon because I'm really into our circadian rhythm right now. And there's also things like nutrition and how the built environment helps to inform our nutrition choices. That's something you would never think about when you think about an interior designer. What does that interior designer have to do with lunch?
Right. Nothing what the mainstream person would assume, or I would assume.
Right.
Right.
But it absolutely has a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because we spend 90% of our time indoors, our spaces shape us, and vice versa. We shape our spaces shape us.
Yeah.
And so it's really important to move into designing our spaces with this intuition, of course, and also with the knowledge and this evidence-based design principle, so that we can create the best spaces for ourselves and for our loved ones. I really feel like interior design, especially for commercial spaces, these cafes, spaces in and around, office spaces, no matter what it is, it's really about public health. And once interior designers are able to hold themselves accountable for that, then we're moving in the right direction, in my opinion.
It's almost like interior designers are like becoming doctors in a way, you know? It's like the doctor isn't just the doctor you go see at the hospital. It's your interior designer. It's your grocer. It's your, friend even can be a doctor in some sense.
Your farmer.
Your farmer. Ooh, big, definitely a doctor. Yeah, I love that so much. But like, what do you think about when you think like, oh, this person or this cafe, which you did bring up a cafe, and I should maybe stop and talk about that for a second. Maya Moon, one of the most amazing places that I love to go and frequent there. And you helped design that place. And again, like once you go into this place, you just, first of all, there's just a light vibe that you feel like there's just a light energy, there's sunlight coming in, plants, and there's just there's a feeling of lightness. Like I feel like when I go in, I feel like I can like relax a little bit, and there's that sense. And the people who work there are obviously like amazing people. And like Catherine, the owner, she hires just people who she knows can like serve in this kind of place, which is just beyond. It's a cacao cafe, so they serve cacao, but it's, of course, it's like beyond just the cacao. It's more about the experience and the spirit of the people, and just all of it coming together really makes for just such a great experience when you go there. And I want to talk about that. So how do you go about designing a place like that, or designing a place that puts maybe health and wellness at its forefront?
Wow. Okay, cool. A lot of really great questions there. I designed my moon specifically based on Catherine's flagship product, which is the chakra chocolates or the chakra truffles.
Okay.
So every truffle, there's 7, represents a chakra, which is like a pinpoint on your body that holds specific energies. So I designed my moon to be aligned with the chakras. So before you even walk in, you're in the crown chakra. When you walk in, you're in the third eye because you can see. By the time you're ordering and you're talking to those beautiful people who work there, you're in the throat chakra. And then after that comes the heart chakra. And the heart chakra is the most important at my moon because cacao is a heart opener. And it's also about identity. And so that's where we have the full moon that's painted on the ground, and that Catherine and I painted ourselves, actually.
Really? You guys painted it? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, we painted it.
Yeah.
It needs a refresh. And that's the thing. I say all this, everything needs a refresh at this point. And we're moving in that direction.
Yeah.
But so it's about identity and heart opening and love, that really deep love. That's where we have that's where we first started with a lot of the plants that are in that area too. They started there. And then from there you move into the solar plexus. And I remember when we first opened, people would come through and they'd have their small talk in the throat section. They'd have a heart to heart in the heart chakra, and then they moved into the solar plexus and just eat because it's for your stomach,
Yeah.
And so they would just be stuffing their faces in the solar plexus chakra. I'm like, there it is.
Wow.
And then the sacral chakra, which is right before the second set of doors, and that area, not only is it where the bathrooms are, but people also have 3 different sight lines. So you have the sight line through the door, turn around, you have the sight line out into the root chakra, which we're getting to, and there's a third door there. You have a sight line back out to the sidewalk as well. And it's like a see and be seen. It's a very like flirty. That's probably the most flirtatious spot in the whole space.
In the back, like near
by the doors,
by the doors, by the bathrooms.
So then from there, you move into the root chakra, which is the outdoor patio area. And it really gets back to our roots. And that's literally where my friend Jillian Wilding did the original plant out for that. And we put as many edible plants there as possible. And that's also where we connect back to Lestat's, which was the neighbor. That whole area, that whole unit used to be Lestat's. And then in COVID, they had to downsize. So that's how Catherine was able to get the spot. Exactly. And so we pay tribute to Lestat's there on the back patio. And that's where we really connect to our roots and to the neighborhood at large.
Wow. You
didn't even know that.
I had no idea, of course. And I was gonna say like for the person who's just going there to drink a cacao, maybe like these things are like very subliminal. It's like they don't know that when they come in, it's like the crown to the third eye, or maybe some people are tapped into that, but maybe I think most people wouldn't realize that, and they would just feel it. And the energy that you're creating is just a subtle energy to be immersed in rather to be thought about. But now that you're like kind of taking a step back and just showing me the plan from like a bird's eye view, I'm like, holy shit, like there's actually like so much that goes into it. And it kind of makes sense. Like once you go in, you're like there, and then like that elevation, like, the crown, and then the third eye, you can see everything. And then you talk to the cashier or the barista or whatever, and then the back is the tables, and then that's where the food is happening. And it's so interesting how like intricate and how much attention you guys put into this. And it shows like your creativity and how much like you can just change the space with just an intention of creating something special, I think. So really awesome that you created that space.
Thank you. And what's crazy to me, it was the first space I did as my own company as an entrepreneur. And I don't know if you've ever been an entrepreneur, but it's scary.
Yeah.
It's the scariest thing I've ever
done. I mean, this podcast is like my first thing that I've ever done for myself, but so very early. Yeah.
Scary.
Yeah.
It gets scary.
Yeah. And what was the scariest part? Or what was scary about it in general?
I mean, my moon, not so much like scary, but I mean, there's a lot riding on these spaces. And the point I want to make here is that this is a space I did back in 2021. It's 2024 now. Yeah. And it's still the talk of the town. Yeah. Like, and it's like these intricate details that, we thought about, that I conceptualized back in 2021, are still being realized, are still super relevant, are still timeless. And that's what it takes to really be intuitive and to really feel into something, and not just to go with a trend because it's a trend.
Right.
And yeah, so what's scary about entrepreneurialism and like first stepping out is, well, as an entrepreneur, there's no glass ceiling. There's no limit on the amount of income I can make. I am abundance. I am wealth. I embody that. And there's no floor. There's no minimum of how much you can make. there's no limit to the amount of debt you can go into as an entrepreneur. And it's all for your business. And it's that part is really scary because you can be in the depths and, you can be in the red. And it's like, if you had like a normal 9 to 5, even if you have a sales position, there's still a base salary. There's still, oh, we can only do 10 hours this week. Okay, well, there's still something. I can work 40 hours a week and have none of it be billable. That's scary.
Yeah, it's like it goes both ways, right? Like your successes are due to you because you are raising this business almost like a child from the get-go. And also maybe like your failures are also maybe due to you in that sense. And so being able to like learn from those and, build on that, and then, growing something that's kind of yours, your vision, your idea. I think there's so much meaning that comes with that. And again, I'm not like a super entrepreneur guy, but like I see how I'm raising this podcast in a way that's like, it's I'm building something that's mine. I want to create it. I want to have, it's almost like my space. Like you can see here's things that I have that are mine, and just raising that space. And then just as I grow as a person, like it grows with me. Like my podcast grows with me. Like your business grows with you, and like you bring new ideas that you learn, of course, from a variety of sources of other people, and then you put all those into your vision of who you are and what you represent and what you want to gift or what you want to give to the world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so let's get into that. Like what's like your vision, like when you're an Afro Chicana woman.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious about that. I wonder if that has influenced your style or just the way you approach interior design and that whole business.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, how it really affects how I approach business because, well, my dad was this amazing Mexican man who always had a job, would work overtime, and had a hustle. So I learned the hustle from him 100%.
Mm-hmm.
My mom, beautiful Black woman from the South Side of Chicago, always had a job, could keep a job, and even if she lost a job, because she had trouble with authority, so she would lose jobs too, but always found a job that aligned with her, with what she wanted to do. It didn't matter if it didn't pay that much. It didn't, like, she did not take a job that wasn't completely aligned. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so she bucked the system in a lot of ways and showed us that you don't have to work in a job that you hate just because it puts food on the table, because you'll go crazy. It'll kill you. Whereas my grandmother on my mom's side worked a job, her and her sisters, my great aunts, all worked at a factory job in Oswego, Illinois. The boonies, they all worked at this at Dial Corp. Dial soap.
No, I haven't really heard of that.
Well, that's because you're new to America. Anyway, they all worked in this factory, and my mom saw that, and she grew up with that, and she understood this is what pays the bills. This is what, allows us to be able to have a mortgage and this, that, and the third. And at the same time, it was killing my aunts and her mother. And it ended up being really not a healthy place to be. And I remember that corporation. I remember the smell because they make soap.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so soap is rendered from animal fat. And so for 3 mile radius, you just smell this animal rendering. It can't be healthy at all.
No, yeah. Probably all sorts of toxic chemicals coming into your system from that.
Exactly. So we're talking about environment, and that there is a place, and we might all get shadow banned because I'm talking about this, right?
Right.
But there is a place they're endangering not only the people who work for them, but everybody in a 3-mile radius because of the air quality. And who knows what they're doing to the water? Who knows what they're doing to, in like in nourishment and all these other pillars that we talk about. I have no idea, but I do know that my lineage, my grandmother and all of her sisters work there. And so we were all affected by that place. And so my mom saw that and she's like, I don't care if I have to work at a library. I don't care if I have to have an entry-level position job forever. I'm not going to work at that factory like everybody else did. She's just not. And, we suffered from that because, well, I mean, I have a long story, y'all. But we suffered from that because when my dad did get deported after 9/11, we were homeless. And my mom, even though we were homeless, even though, we needed that hustler, we needed, that factory job, we needed somebody who would work nights and would, just to put food on the table so that we could go to school and, have clothes on our back. She, even in those circumstances, she's like, no, I'm going to work this entry level job, this, minimum wage job, because this is what I want to do. I don't want to do that other bullshit. Sorry, everybody. And I grew up with that, and it took me a long time. It took me a really long time to understand why. At the same time, we survived homelessness. We survived. And there were resources there for us and we were supported. It wasn't the way we wanted it to be. It wasn't, I wasn't rocking Nikes or, I didn't have that Adidas tracksuit that I wanted. I couldn't, join all the clubs and do all the trips and do everything that I wanted to do. But it's, we survived. We're better people. And because of it, and I will never forget that my mom chose to do what she wanted to do in her profession, despite the sacrifices. It didn't matter. The money didn't matter. The money doesn't matter. If you're doing something that sucks, that doesn't bring you life every day, if you wake up and you're not excited to go do what you're getting paid to do, then don't do it, is what she taught me for years.
Wow.
I know.
It's one of the most incredible lessons, We live in a world that's like a capitalist structure, society, and I feel bad for a lot of people because they just want to make money and survive. Like they want to get through that rat race, but at the sacrifice of like their own intelligence or their own authentic expression of who they are. And yeah, it sounds like you got that from your mom. And so how did that translate to you? Like when did you get into this whole space of like interior design and that whole shindig?
Oh man, I've been a designer / architect since I could remember, really. I was in 3rd grade and the word architect came on a spelling test. And I was like, what's that? And they're like, that's someone who designs buildings. I'm like, that's me. And I've pretty much been focused ever since.
Since then?
Oh, yeah.
8th grade?
3rd grade.
3rd grade? Oh my God.
3rd grade.
Wow.
By the time 9th grade rolled around, I was
Yeah.
learning how to draft and how to blueprint. I'm one of the few people, I think, in the design field who is actually blueprinted with iodine and like had the, like, literally. It's so fun. I feel so old. But like I learned how to draft and everything.
Yeah.
In high school.
Yeah.
In 9th grade.
Yeah.
I was drafting. By the time sophomore year rolled around, I was doing AutoCAD. Junior, senior year, I was doing Revit. In college, I knew Revit more than the professors. And yeah, it's pretty much been a journey ever since. I've gotten to a point in my career where I was super specialized and I was only doing sustainable interior architecture and I was only working with a handful of these. I was getting really good at a handful of these digital products. And also it just wasn't fulfilling doing that stuff. because I knew that even though I was specifying super sustainable demountable walls, that it wasn't enough to, how do I say this? I knew that I needed to be more holistic, even though I was in the corporate world, even though I was feeding myself and
Right.
putting some money away and living in San Diego, by the beach. It was 4 blocks from the beach, and I was living the life like it wasn't fulfilling because I knew I needed to be more holistic, and I would push my employer to be more holistic and to think about these things like differently, and to think about off gassing, and to think about, who we're teaming up with in terms of furniture, in terms of flooring, and the sustainability stuff, and like really asking those questions, those hard questions. And I realize most people in the corporate world make sustainable decisions. Sorry to point at you. Make sustainable decisions because they want, because of the bottom line, because it only because it makes sense, because it pencils, because it's less expensive than the competitor or whatever, or it's subsidized, or they get some sort of tax benefit or whatever. That's the only way we're going to get a lot of the corporate world to make decisions, more environmentally responsible decisions. And it makes me sad, but it's also gives me fuel to understand, okay, now that we know that, now that we have that piece of information, like how do we make these, and I don't, like I said, I don't like that word sustainable.
Right.
How do we infuse regenerative practices into our built environment at a corporate scale, at a corporate level, so that these people, and we're sitting in his house right now, right? We're sitting in your house right now.
Yeah.
Some big corporate conglomerate developer spec'd all these out, right? And they chose the paint they chose. Every single piece that they chose in here, including your faucet, they chose it because it made sense, money wise,
Right.
Not because it was good for you, not because they care about you,
right.
Because they care about the money,
Right.
And so the only way that we're gonna get those people to make the right decisions if it makes sense monetarily.
Right. So you want to find that balance between like monetary financial gain and like sustainable value, and also maybe aesthetic value as well. So it's like those trifecta. Is there anything else that I'm missing in that concoction?
I mean, the wellness aspect.
The wellness aspect.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about that. So
Sure.
You're a holistic designer. So like the word holistic in my language of like naturopathic medicine and this whole stuff is like, you eat the right things, you sleep the right way, but like holistic with design, like at what levels can you apply? It's the term, but it means it's more than just a term, right? At what levels can you apply holistically your theory into designing a place? Like where does the, let me rephrase this.
How is it holistic?
How's it holistic? And at what levels is it holistic?
Let's talk about sleep.
Yeah.
Let's talk about sleep.
Let's talk about sleep.
Okay.
Yeah.
You sleep good?
Yeah, pretty good.
What do you do to sleep good? Like, do you have a ritual?
Cold, so I have to bring down the AC for sure. I need to take a hot shower, like maybe like an hour before bed, or like a little longer, maybe, preferably. I need to be well fed. And so my ritual is like I come here. I don't know if most people do this, but I don't go to my bed. I come here and I like zone out, because if I go to my bed and I'm not tired, then I won't fall asleep. So I have to get tired outside of my bed, so that once I'm tired, then I can like pick myself up, like, and then just go there and boom, I'm passed out. But all those things, so like the temperature, the AC, and well fed need to be taken care of, like before I sleep.
Okay, so pretty much everything you just mentioned, maybe plus or minus the having a full tummy, had to do with environmental aspects, your environment. Specifically, I mean, the temperature. You're able to adjust the temperature how you need it to be in your built environment, right? in your little cocoon up here. You specifically said, hey, you come out here to get tired, to meditate, or do whatever you got to do,
something like that,
to focus,
yeah,
so that you can say, okay, I'm tired. I wonder how the lighting is like when you're doing that.
very dim. Actually, I would turn off all the lights.
You turn off all the lights.
I turn off all the lights, and then this is also something that's a kind of used to be a pet peeve. It's not really a pet peeve, but because I leave this open, which is like just the window and the blinds. I keep the blinds open because I sometimes forget to close the blinds, and then I go to sleep and I wake up and I go to school and I do my thing, and then my plants are just starving of like light. So I just leave it open, and so there's a little bit of light coming in from the outside, but everything in my apartment is just completely turned off. So yeah, either very dim or just dark.
That's an environmental thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that gets back to the circadian rhythm.
Yeah.
Let's talk about
You've been itching to talk about circadian rhythms.
Oh my God.
I want to know what.
Well, okay.
What's got you so excited?
This book. It's called The Circadian Code. It's by Dr. Sachin Panda.
I know Sachin Panda. Yeah.
You know him?
I mean, not personally.
Oh my God.
But he's
awesome. He's over here at the Salk Institute.
Yeah.
So man, you're in it. Read his book.
Yeah.
Circadian Code.
Fascinating stuff.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
So basically what I've learned from Dr. Sachin Panda is that everything we do, all of our bodily experiences is all really sort of dictated by the sun or lack thereof. And so the fact that you said, hey, I turned off the lights, like I did all these things, it's so that you can gear your circadian rhythm and like your mind and say, hey, it's nighttime. It's time to go and rest and rejuvenate so that we can, go get it the next day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
then the phones too. I forgot to mention, like no phones, no screens. Like that's part of the circadian aspect as well. The light. Yeah.
Exactly. So you get it, man. And so like I've learned so much from Dr. Sachin Panda about our circadian rhythm as humans and how we need the sun in order to even digest our food and to, like if we're sick, like we need the sun to help us so that we know when to go to sleep and, and when to wake up and like to how to go to sleep at the same time every night and to wake up at the same time every night, and how to that really helps to boost our immune system and boost our digestion and our metabolisms, and so that we can be super effective and focused like throughout the day. And design really helps us to be able to get daylight where we need it. I think one of the reasons why, and like you mentioned my moon being like light and bright earlier, you even mentioned that you feel like you're in heaven when you're there.
Yeah, literally in heaven, I swear. Not an exaggeration, by the way.
I attribute most of that obviously to the vibes and the people and the music and the heart opening, the cacao, and
the sun,
those skylights. We added skylights in there. There's big panels of glass that are just open, and
those the windows kind of on the ceiling, or
that's the skylights.
Okay,
those are skylights. They're right over the couch.
Okay.
There. The couch is a funny story, but yeah, and I attribute most of that to skylights and just like the availability of daylighting in that space. And it really helps people to like feel like they can be comfortable in a space that's getting the proper amount of light that we actually need. So it's like whenever you walk into a space, like I hope you get as much daylight as you get in my moon, while you're sitting and working. Because if you go into an office or even here in your own space and you're sitting here working, you're not getting the kind of daylight that you need. And so your mind may think, oh, well, maybe the sun is setting. Maybe I should start to get tired. No, it's 11 a.m. I got things to do. Like, let's go, body.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And also the color of light is a big deal. So I see that you have here red light, on a little LED strip
Mhm.
sort of hidden behind here so that the couch sort of emulates like red behind it.
Yeah, especially when I turn off the lights, it's really cool and it's dark.
Yeah.
It's like it's a nice little vibe going
Yeah,
on.
it's a vibe. And
Yeah.
it's good because that vibe that you have going on is completely in line with your circadian rhythm. You
Right.
didn't even know you're doing good things, but you are.
Yeah. I mean, it was kind of intentional.
Okay,
Like, there's
good.
many different colors I can put these, but they're red because I turn them on at night and then just leave them in the morning because I forget to turn them off. But like,
Yeah.
they're red, because red light at night helps with the melatonin release.
Right.
Blue light, polar opposite, will help you wake up. It's what the sun is emitting during the day. And so, yeah, I'm in tune with that circadian aspect. I could do better with like using my phone and stuff, but like,
It's okay.
it's all in balance, I would say.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And, if you ever are having a day where you're like, wow, my body is exhausted, but my mind is racing. Well, to turn off the lights and to put your phone down and to hang out with this red light or to hang out in darkness or to completely just cut it off. I personally sleep with a mask, an eye mask, just because I'm super sensitive to light.
Yeah.
I'm very sensitive to light.
Yeah.
It's kind of embarrassing, honestly. I don't think people believe how sensitive I am to light. But it's that sort of thing that just helps me to get to sleep. And that's something that, to get to your point of holistic design, that's something that designers can and should take responsibility for.
Yeah.
And architects too. Because
Right.
it's the architect that made it so that, these are the only two windows you have in your space.
Right. Yeah. I think the other apartments in this like complex are slightly different. It's just where I'm at.
Sure.
I'm like sandwiched in like a corner.
Sure.
Almost. But yeah, like I mean,
I'm not mad at it. I'm not saying it's your fault. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
I know. I'm a little mad. I'm obvious. I'm like, yeah, it was just a good offer and all that. But I could always like switch apartments at some point and figure that out.
We talked about
we talked about this before. But like,
he's moving because of me.
Yeah, she came in, we just met, and now I'm moving to PB. I don't know, I'm moving somewhere else, somewhere near the beach with some skylights and
some skylights. Yeah.
I'm just gonna camp at Maya Moon. And I wonder if Catherine would be okay if I just brought
she might be all right.
I brought a tent and was like just like a little shaman just in my little shell and like, I don't know. Like
she might give you a job.
Yeah.
You might be scrubbing out the grease trap in the back.
Right.
Yeah.
For Maya Moon, I feel like there's some pretty weird jobs you can probably get there. So, not like other places where it's like, it's more specific and
vibe
niche.
Holder, music music
selector, something like that. Exactly. But no, you brought up a really important point about like the light and how that is such a big piece of like holistic design. Is like what we're doing is, like you said in the beginning, we are serving nature. We are building our houses, our homes, our cafes, our businesses, our corporate spaces to serve that purpose of what we are doing there, right? And that is hugely determinant by if the sun is out, if the sun is down, because it kind of goes hand in hand. Like there's almost like an aesthetic value to like having the sun come in, but like you were saying, is like it's a functional thing. Like I want it to be in when I'm doing my work and I'm doing things, as opposed to like not being there, and that'll confuse my circadian rhythm a little bit. So yeah, super important, sunlight and having that in. I wonder about other things. So like holistically speaking, like sunlight, like what else is important for designing a space?
Air quality. Oh my God. For me, because, and like I said, I'm a super sensitive person, I think, in general. Air quality is such a big deal.
Yeah.
Like if you pick the wrong paint, well, let's try and frame this in a positive way. It's possible to pick paint that will off gas into your space for 10 years. And so it's really important to get a low VOC paint or a low or no VOC paint and its volatile compounds.
So less volatile compounds is good.
Yeah, none if you can have
none if you can have it.
Right. And it exists. There's plenty of paint out there that's not. I wrote a blog on it. I'll have to. Anyway.
Yeah. Do you think this is non-volatile?
This is like straight up construction grade flat. Like, there's no telling. There ain't no telling what's in this stuff.
Wow.
There ain't no
I
telling.
actually, you're blowing my mind. Like, I'm like, how?
But it's also comes down to the furniture that you
Right.
choose and what sort of adhesives like they're using to glue together the furniture. There's some furniture, I mean, it's illegal,
Right.
but some furniture still has formaldehyde.
Oof.
Yeah. And all these other like different compounds that are red listed that shouldn't be there are there. And so how do you get around that? Because it's really tough for a layman who's just buying something on Amazon. I hate Amazon.
We all hate Amazon.
Okay, cool. But for somebody who's just buying something at their local furniture store, how do they know, besides, stuffing their nose into one of the cushions, how do they know that it's bad for them? They don't.
They have no idea.
They have no idea. Unless they reach out to the manufacturer and they go through every single ingredient that they use. And the manufacturer doesn't even know most of the time because they got it from they got different components from other manufacturers who are in China and India or whatever. And, maybe they don't have as stringent laws as we do here in California. We know that they don't have as many stringent laws.
Right.
And so, and you don't know like what sort of, getting back to factories, a lot of these interior products are built in huge factories that are polluting the environment. So it's like you can choose something that's off-gassing, that has formaldehyde, that is, just overall like bad for you, first of all, in your place, and that's bad for the environment, that's polluting the people around them, that's giving cancers and ulcers and whatever else to the people there, and just polluting the earth in general.
Yeah.
If we don't know.
Right.
Or you can
what's the alternative?
The alternative, you can walk hand in hand with a designer who is able to navigate these red listed items and can point to brands that make more sense for our health and for the environment. And you can also work with a designer or on your own to source vintage things that have already been used, things that are secondhand, things that were pre-loved. And the advantage of utilizing something that's vintage is that it's probably already off-gassed, especially if it's more than 10 years old. And you save a piece of furniture, you save it from the landfill. So that's cool because 60% of what's in the landfill is from construction. Wow. That sucks. Yeah. It's another reason why I went more on the holistic side, more of the sustainable regenerative practices side of interior design, because once I learned that so much of what's in a landfill is from construction waste, is from my industry, I could not live with that. I could not sit with that. I could not sleep. And so I knew I had to make a difference personally. Interior designers are responsible. Well, and they need to act like it for a lot of what's in the landfill, a lot of what we're suffering from, a lot of people's headaches. It's from these decisions that interior designers made.
Wow.
And they don't even know. A lot of them don't even know.
I had no idea
the damage that they've done. And like, I'm all about forgiveness.
Right.
And I'm all about, acknowledging, okay, this is what happened. This is how we failed. This is how we failed society as an industry. That's great. I'm not going to beat you up for it. Let's do better. How do we do better? And like sort of really leading that movement of, okay, like, how do we do this better? And there's a lot of, and the reason why I don't like the term sustainability, because people are like, oh, well, it's less waste than we had last year. It's less off gassing than before. It's less of a carbon footprint than it was,
Yeah.
whatever, in the 10 years. It's not enough to do less bad. We have to do good.
More good.
At this point. We have to do good, super good.
Right.
Not only good, and I look at it like this way. I drive a gas guzzling car that has its own carbon footprint. I've been driving this car since 2009. And even though it's like a clean air car or whatever, I'm still utilizing gasoline. My mom drives a car that utilizes gasoline. This is like maybe her 6th car in her life. And her mom drove a gas guzzling car. So not only am I faced with, and I take this on, right, voluntarily, right? Like, because this is the way I see it. Not only do I feel the need to clean up the carbon footprint from what I've set just from my car, I also feel the need to clean up the carbon footprint from my mom and from her mom and from her mom. And it's like, when you look at it like that, if I just get a car that's doing something less, it doesn't cut it. I'm sorry to get so serious. I'm sorry to
No, we need to hear this.
Bring out the aggressive voice.
Yeah, well, it's a really important message, because like, coming from an interior designer, like, maybe there's an interior designer listening to this, or they know someone, they don't think that they have an accountability to take care of these matters when it comes to like sustainability, health, wellness. Like, they seem to be separated from that, or at least that's the illusion, that they're separate from it. So don't be sorry. Like, this is a really important message that needs to be spoken. I'm so glad you're bringing it up.
Yeah, thank you. And it's heavy too.
Yeah.
And this is why, like, it helps to talk about climate in like a really gentle way, because it can really send a lot of people into a climate spiral, downward spiral. Right now in the world, I mean, there's so much going on in the world between war and natural disasters. But right now, like, specifically, I don't know when this will air, but specifically Brazil is underwater. There's, entire neighborhoods in Rio that's completely underwater because of flooding, because they've been deforesting these areas for generations. And so now here's your disaster. Like, here is what, you reap what you sow. Here it is. Here in San Diego, we suffer a lot of flooding.
We do.
There's a ton of flooding, more this year than ever before. They call it a 100-year storm. No, baby. That's climate change. And it's just, like I said, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer. I don't want it to deter anybody from thinking about this, because it's sad. I want to invite more people into the discussion, and to really talk about what's done in the past and how we can rectify it. Right. And it starts with looking at it like that. Like, not only do I have to clean up my carbon footprint, I have to clean up the carbon footprint for my mother and her mother. And that's just my maternal line. That's not the paternal, I mean, my father and his father and all that as well. So it's kind of a big deal. It's kind of heavy.
It is.
It's heavy, but until we start to take responsibility, this generation and the next, like, we'll just have more disasters to clean up, more floods to clean up, more blood spilt because of climate change.
Yeah, it's like that, like, you are the change that you want to see in the world, like, and how can we apply ourselves to these things? And I think that also on a weird strategy, that kind of how I think about this, about like how my impact is. I'm somewhat environmentally friendly, somewhat not. I think we all are, if we live in this like Western society. Like you mentioned, like, you have a car, I have a car, like these things. But I feel like if people work on themselves, regardless if it has to do with the environment, like maybe you work on your own like spiritual growth, maybe you work on like pursuing a career that fills you with joy and passion, maybe you work on your health, whatever it is, if you focus on yourself in that way, I think that that naturally creates this tendency to want to just be better, to help other people, to help the environment, right? Because it's all connected, right? Like the water that you drink is going to impact how you feel, and where that water is coming from impacts how you feel. And the food, all these farms that are using pesticides to grow foods, and that's coming to your plate and into your body and into your system, like it's all playing into the same thing. Similarly, like the mental challenges and the spiritual challenges that we face, I think that facing those with a sense of courage and a sense of love, and that naturally breeds the same frequency of courage and love and joy. And then you start to want to share that with other people, and not just other people, with other beings, right? Like I have this thing where it's like you are a being for sure, but I also think that beings don't just have to be humans. Like I think rocks are alive. I think the air is alive. I think everything is being, because everything is consciousness. And so if you naturally inhabit that frequency, then you start to want to make changes, and you start to alchemize that sadness that you're talking about, which I think it's important to feel some of that in how we are treating the world as a collective, and alchemize it into something greater, into something bigger, and something that we can enjoy more. So we can do the things that we enjoy. We can hang out with the people we love. We can, do the things that we love more. And because it's all connected, they're all part of the same divine magical play, if you will.
Sure. Yeah. Like it's always with respect to Mother Nature, and like this collective consciousness, this Christ consciousness, as they say.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know who called it Christ consciousness, but
Jesus.
Well, I don't think he called it that.
He probably didn't coin the term. In fact, I don't know if was he Christ like when he was like he was Jesus, like he was just a dude named Jesus, right? And they did some things, but then after he died is when the whole like Christ thing came about. So
right, the
Messiah. I
don't know if they called him the Messiah. I mean, they probably called him the Messiah when he was alive, I think.
Yeah, like
the
he was
Son of God.
His power was like recognized like when he was still alive.
Oh yeah, he was turning water into wine, man.
Yeah, no one else was turning water into wine.
I mean, I'm sure somebody else was doing it, but not like Jesus. Come on. That was the main man back in the day. I don't know. I wasn't there. Maybe I was.
Yeah. That's an interesting term, Christ consciousness. I really like it. I'm not a Christian myself, but like I feel like Christ is something that we can all believe in. It's just a way of living, if you will. Delete the history behind it and the concept. Just a way of being like your authentic self, So it's interesting that you brought it up.
The number one thing I learned from my journey with Jesus, not to say that I'm like an especially religious person, but I am an especially spiritual person. And I grew up in the church.
What kind of church was it?
It's called the Temple of Spiritual Truth.
Wow, that's kind of neat.
I felt like you were giving me a high five.
I'll give you a high. I'll give you a fist bump too. And then like a high five and a fist bump at the same time.
Hell yeah.
But wait, that's cool, because like I was expecting maybe like a more Catholic, like sure, I don't know, just something that was more conservative, but it sounds to be more of a liberal side of things.
More pagan, I guess, in a way. And the church I grew up in, my grandmother was the pastor, and my aunt now, my grandmother's daughter, is a minister at this church, and I'm thinking about it, maybe stepping into ministry at some point. I don't know. Y'all are the first to hear it here on this podcast.
That's cool.
But it's something that is intergenerational. And one of the things I learned I learned a lot of things about Christ, and I learned a lot of things, both Old Testament and New Testament. And my biggest takeaway is the forgiveness aspect, because Jesus supposedly died for all our sins. I think it's more so he died so that we can remember to forgive ourselves, not so much that we need Jesus to be forgiven. I don't think anybody needs to ask Jesus, this man who died, I don't know how many years ago, to forgive them. It's more so like he's the reminder that we have the power within to forgive ourselves.
Yeah.
And once we can forgive ourselves, we can move on. We can heal. And we can heal ourselves. And now we're getting into the medical practices and the naturopathic holistic stuff. But it's these are the basis of my being and my belief system. And it's forgiveness for me is such a powerful thing. It's probably the most powerful skill that I have and that I've cultivated over the past few years. And it's something that it's this reoccurring thing. And like I often ask myself, hey, Steffi, can you forgive me for thinking that way? Hey, Steffi, can you forgive me for feeling like this? And I give myself the grace of forgiveness. And it's something that really helps me to become, really whole, even in those times of vulnerability, even in those times, hey, Steffi, can you forgive me for not making as much money as I used to when I was working my corporate job? Hey, Steffi, can you forgive me for, like not driving a BMW, like we were planning to? Can you forgive me for not having that drop top Audi that I really wanted, at this point in my life? Can you forgive me for everything? And so, like, I really invite you and, all your listeners to really start there and to really, like, forgive yourselves as I've forgiven myself. And just allow yourself to even ask those questions, like, so that we can all move on collectively. I have to forgive myself for driving a gas guzzling car all the time, all the time, because I know that even though it's not exactly where I want to be right now, like I'm on my path, right?
Right.
And so that takes a lot of grace and a lot of courage to show up and to show up for myself. So
really powerful message.
Thank you.
Almost as you were saying it, I was kind of like just submerging myself in that forgiveness frequency, and I was like, oh, I feel like a little lighter than I did like just 20 seconds ago. So yeah, thanks so much for that message. And yeah, it's it's going back to Jesus a little bit. Like, it's not about asking him for forgiveness, this person who lived 2,000 years ago, right? Like, the story of Jesus is meant to be a story of you, right? And how you can tap into your own Christ. And I think a lot of people maybe get lost in that, where they're like,
lost in the sauce.
They get lost in the sauce, where it's like, this person is going to save me. I just have to pray to this being or this God. Then it's creating that duality of like the separation between you and Jesus, between you and God, or you and the Buddha, or you and whatever thing that you believe in or being that you believe in. And then collapsing that separation to realize, like, oh, I am just as forgiving as Jesus Christ himself, or God, or Mama Gaia, or whatever you believe in.
It starts within.
Starts here.
Yeah, for sure. Man, that whole savior part, it gets, I mean, that part is sort of loaded, right? Whew. I told, and I say this to my friends, people who are close to me, I've never said it recorded, right? I'm not waiting for, how do I say this? I'm not waiting for a white man to come and save me. I'm not waiting for a white man to come and save me. And I say that, and it's racially charged, it's sexually charged, it's like probably the most radical thing. I mean, I'm pretty radical in a lot of ways, but like probably the most radical piece that I've picked up, for better or for worse. And I say that because as an entrepreneur, I'm not out here trying to get some job, to work for some white man who's at the top of a company, right? And I say that because most CEOs in America are white men, rich white men, right? Rich old white men. No shade on them. I'm just not waiting for any of them to come save me, right?
Mhm.
I'm not waiting on Jesus, this man who's portrayed as a white man, to come save me at all.
Right.
I'm not waiting, and I'm completely straight, right? I'm really open to marriage and really open to, partnership and starting a family. And I'm not waiting on a man to come and save me, right? And so I think that really takes so much responsibility to like hold that, and also like a lot of independence, right? Because I'm one of the most independent people I know, for better or for worse, and kind of makes me a crazy person, especially in like the Latino culture,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because as a woman, to be like, what do you mean you're not waiting for a man to save you? Like, go make dinner. Like it's very
Conservative, patriarchal,
it's
dominant, men dominant culture.
radical. It's radical against
Right.
all that.
Yeah.
And like I said, my mom has always had a job. She's just now stepping into entrepreneurialism in her retirement. And it's like it goes all the way back to, systematic racism, with Black people, and like specifically Black women being like the most underpaid like people in this country, Mexican women right with them. And like, wow, it's getting deep. I didn't know if you realized we were going to get this deep today, but
it's the Inner Owl Wellness podcast. There's no telling where it could go.
Exactly.
I'm happy to go there. Yeah.
But it's like all these people, like literally generation to generation to generation back, they're all waiting for the white man to cut them a check or whatever. It goes all the way back to slavery. And it's like, the white man was in power. I'm not waiting for a white man to come bring me dinner. I'm not waiting for that. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm really changing up the narrative for my lineage in so many different ways. And I think that's why I need to be really gentle with myself, and I need to be really forgiving and like allow myself to fail. I've never been allowed to fail. And like really allow myself to move forward with grace, because I am overcoming so much. And yeah, that's where we're at, man.
Man, that is such an empowering message.
That's where we're at.
Just hear that. It sounds like you're really developing a sense of like sovereignty in your being, and you don't want to depend on no one to have that sovereignty and to be able to do the things that you want to do in a free, intelligent way that you are, and just represent yourself in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, with like society and how it's been structured, and racism and slavery and all of that, and like the intergenerational kind of trauma that comes with that, like it's really empowering to hear that message from you. And I'm sure a lot of people are being inspired by this now, and will continue to be inspired by that, and how you carry yourself. It's really awesome to see.
Thank you. I'm really looking forward to just like proving everything wrong in a lot of ways. And as independent as I am, and as much as I'm like, hey, I'm not waiting for anybody to come save me, we are a community.
Mm-hmm.
you know,
At the end of the day, yeah.
we are community, and I'm so grateful to have such beautiful friends and community members to collaborate with and to have these conversations and to get hired by, to do design for, and to be that guide, and to, you know, walk hand in hand with somebody who really wants to create space that they thrive in, and to understand the partnership that comes with that, and to really be there for people, because that's the thing. I'm a Virgo. I have a Virgo stellium. I'm like super service oriented. Super service oriented. And I love helping people. I love being a resource for people. I love answering questions. I love asking questions and really getting to the crux of what we're trying to accomplish, not just in our spaces, but in our lives, right? Yeah. You know, like who do we want to be? What sort of container do we want to create for ourselves now and in the future, right? And yeah, I love my community here in San Diego. It's one of the across the border as well. People have really helped me to step into entrepreneurialism and to step into the unknown and to step into the abyss. And I'm super grateful for the loving community here.
Yeah, we're so grateful to have you here in San Diego and the world. What kind of container do you want to create? Like, if you were to have like a vision, let's start with like the space, because you know you do a lot of that stuff with, you know, built-in environments and climate discussion, you know, kind of consulting in that kind of space. What do you envision for, let's say, 10 years from now? Assuming that the rate of progression is increasing, because there's a lot of exponential increase. We're speeding up. Do you feel it? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Have you been feeling like this speeding, like how we're just like moving towards something?
I learned something new about AI every day. Like 2-3 new things about AI every day.
Yeah.
So
it's pretty wild.
Yeah, no, I feel it.
Yeah. So how do you feel about where we're moving? And in 10 years, where do you envision the holistic space or the built-in environment moving in that direction?
Well, personally, what I really want, I want a team of consultants and designers who are out, you know, pounding the pavement and are helping people in their spaces, both commercially and residentially.
Right.
I really want to have a legion of regenerative products that people can utilize in their homes so that they don't have to, no offense, buy a love sack.
I love my love sack.
I love your love sack too.
I don't know why you're hating on it.
It's so comfy.
It's my favorite thing here.
Where does it come from?
Wait a minute. Oh, you're asking me to go back in the
You don't have
the
to.
origin story.
I don't want to. I don't want to put you. I don't want
Wait,
to.
like where does it come from? Like
where are the material source?
Ooh.
But what if?
That's the abyss.
What if
we don't go to the abyss? We're scared of the abyss.
I'm going to the abyss. I'm taking a freaking bullet train.
Take me to the abyss.
Let's
go together. Okay, wait. So if you guys don't see this, there's a love sack over here. One of the softest, most comfy, amazing things in my apartment. But we are about to go on the abyss train. One-way ticket to maybe we'll come back. I hope we'll come back from this abyss. But we're going to learn about where these ingredients come from. My guess is that they're probably not the greatest. Polyester for sure. That's to start off. It's, you know, synthetic material that has been shown to like not have a great frequency. Like I know that like there's men's underwear that stopped using polyester. I bet you there's some for women's too. More cotton-based things are preferred. But yeah, so let's start there. Maybe the ingredients that's coming from. What would you suspect in how it was made?
I mean, there's probably tons of different ingredients. That we couldn't even trace back to its original origin at this point. It's so synthetic. It's so plastic and new. And a lot of that is contributing to, carbon footprint as a whole and climate change. And it's probably off gases. Let's just be honest. And, I didn't even realize the frequency thing. That is sort of, I don't normally think of that when I think of furniture, but like, thank you for putting 2 to 2 together. You just gave me some ammo.
Yeah. You're welcome for that ammo. Everything is frequency.
Right.
So everything carries a frequency.
And at the same time,
materials.
I'm not here to shoot you down.
Right.
Because you have a love sack.
I have my love sack.
I'm not mad at you for that.
Right.
Like, I forgive you from the depths of somebody who practices forgiveness, like within. I forgive you. I forgive love sack. I forgive the trucks that brought it over, even though they're emitting, a large carbon footprint,
right.
and all the shipment that had to go on around the world to give you that love sack here in San Diego. It's like, I forgive it all, right? But what if we had a legion of regenerative products at our fingertips instead of these oil-based carbon footprint off-gassing bad for our health products? You know what I mean? And so it's like, I really want that, because I realize, well, one, I come from this place where I feel like I can improve anybody's space with the things that they have on hand. We can make an improvement, right? People, not everybody, but a lot of Americans feel like, oh, if I just bought that one couch, it's going to save all my problems. If I just bought that love sack, it's going to save all my problems. If I just had the perfect coffee table, it's going to solve everything. It's like, you remember being a little kid watching commercials like for that really cool toy,
right? And
you thinking, oh, that toy is gonna
change my life.
It's gonna change my life.
Can't wait to show it to my friends.
Everybody in the neighborhood's gonna be at my house. We're not even gonna go to school anymore. We're just gonna play this video game. We're just gonna do this, and that's gonna be our lives. Don't worry, mom will just make us food. We don't even have to do anything, Damn. And it's like, okay, you're Delulu. That's Delulu.
Yeah. And it starts at such a young age. Like, kids have to be Delulu.
Oh, the consumerism
and,
starts at a super young age. The capitalism is ingrained in that.
Yeah.
From the moment they see something, like new. Basically, that's like for them, new toys, all these things. Right. And so I understand why people are wired to think, oh, if I just buy this handful of stuff, it's going to change my life. And it will. Because we know that your environment affects your whole life, your whole being, your health, and everything. Mm-hmm. So at the same time, it's like, okay, so we have to find a balance between getting those really cool regenerative products and finding like the perfect placement in your apartment or in your home or in your office or in your cafe, in your restaurant, in your music venue, and your dojo and your yoga studio, that's going to affect everyone who comes in contact with it in a positive way. And that's thinking bigger than just, oh, I found this couch on westelm.com and I'm going to get it because it looks cool in this picture. Right? It thinks a little bit different. It's a little deeper. It's a little deeper. And I'm not saying that people can't do it on their own, but I am saying it's a lot easier when you have a holistic designer there with you.
Yeah.
That's right.
Definitely. Yeah, I think for me, like, just, translating to myself is like, I perceive those as being more expensive, like those holistic applications of whatever it is, if it's a couch, if it's a table, if it's a chair, and then not just expensive, like time as well. Like, it requires a little more digging because, of course, the first thing you see is what? Amazon, right? West Elm.
Mhm.
What's the other one that they use? These websites that are
Room
just
and board,
Room and Board,
Wayfair.
Wayfair, exactly. Like these websites,
They'll get it to you quick and
quick,
cheap.
quick and
Quick
cheap
and cheap.
fast.
When was the last time you ate something quick and cheap? How does it make you feel?
Not great. Not great.
And we have choices, right?
Yeah.
We can have that quick and cheap thing, and that's fine.
Yeah.
You can have that, but it's not going to help you to live and thrive the way you want to.
Right.
It's actually, if you drink that cheap diet soda instead of buying like a really nice Kangen water, something, you're gonna feel it.
Shout out to Dr. Adrian.
Shout out to Dr. Adrian.
if you're listening to this, Adrian.
But I guess my point is like, you're right. It can be a luxury. We can turn anything into a luxury.
Right.
Music, food, all of it.
Mm-hmm.
But for the people who really want to make a transformational change in their spaces, one, and I promise you it can be done with what you have on hand. Guarantee you that. Just making little changes here. Maybe you change your mirror so that it's, amplifying the daylight. Maybe you put that floor lamp in a different place. Maybe you just switch out the light bulb or something, so that it doesn't flicker. That's these sorts of things, like small tips and tricks. We can change people's lives just with that.
Uh-huh.
But then also, if we're sourcing vintage, if we're sourcing things that are pre-loved, pre-owned, and these things are way more inexpensive than if you're going to Room and Board, if you're going to Wayfair.com, yes, it takes time, right?
Right.
But when you're building something for yourself and for your family, for your loved ones, that's going to last for the next 10 years, maybe more. It's like, if you just take, another few days to shop for something that actually aligns,
right,
it's going to be something that you cherish and not something that'll
change your life.
It's going to change your life. Everything you put in your place changes your life.
Right.
It just does.
Something that came up for me that I really wanted to ask you was the topic or the philosophy of feng shui. And I'm sure you've come across this before.
Yeah.
I wonder, because, people go like, oh, like your apartment is so feng shui. And like, I'm like, oh, like that's such a sexy word. But like, also like, is that holistic in a sense of like having something to be feng shui? Is that the same thing that you're talking about with designing a space that feels good to walk in, to live in, to breathe in, and to sleep in?
I feel like feng shui is one of those super intentional practices where you can organize your whole space based on this organization principle. Or it's another built environment, like it's another building standard for your built environment, right? We can, like, I did it with the chakras. Instead of calling it feng shui, we did it like, instead of aligning it to the bagua, we aligned it to the chakras.
Right.
So it's like, it's just a different way of just a different organization principle. I respect feng shui because I realize it creates really harmonious spaces because it's organized, because it's intentional. If you do anything with intention, you're going to feel that.
I see.
Right? But at the same time, like, we know that doing things with intention, like feng shui, like we know that it works and it's been working for a long time. My whole question is, why does it work? And really imploring science and evidence-based design to get to the crux of that so that we can figure out how to replicate that in other spaces. Right. So it's like doing things intentionally and doing things like proven. Like, that's why I'm so down with Dr. Sachin Panda, because he really breaks down the science in a way that me as a interior designer with no medical training, that I can implement and change people's lives. I changed your life because you walked into my moon.
Yeah.
I changed everybody who works there.
Yeah.
Their life has changed.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I met Dr. Sachin Panda.
Oh, you met him?
Yeah.
Damn. Did you like go to the Salk Institute and just like hit him up or like knock on his door or something?
I wish. The Salk Institute is under lock and key. You know, you can't just walk up in there.
Secure facility.
Yeah, it's a whole thing. And so I was at Castello de Sofonago in Perugia, Italia, in the very like geographical center of Italy, for this program called Moving Boundaries. And it's a meeting of neuroscientists and architects. There was 80 of us. We met in Venice for a 2-week program where it was just all lectures and tours, and we studied the works of Carlos Scarpa, my favorite architect. And there were some really profound things that were said and learned there. And then we journeyed down to Perugia, and that's where Dr. Sachin Panda lectured. And so he gave us a full hour of brilliance. And then I moved on to read his book.
Super cool.
Yeah.
He lectured just the 8 of you?
80.
80. Oh, I heard 8 people. I was like,
80.
wow.
At that point, I mean, a few people had fallen off, so it was maybe closer to 50.
But that's also a pretty small group. Like, that's a intimate kind of setting. That's super cool that you got to like witness the knowledge and the circadian wisdom that he was like spewing. Sure. Yeah.
So like I do these programs to supplement my lack of neuroscience education, because not everybody can do that.
Right.
Not everybody can make it through those PhD programs.
Right.
So,
and you have like a vested interest in biology too. Like before we started the podcast, you were just dropping some like white blood cell, spitting some shit. I was like, oh, like she's got some knowledge. I was like, do you have like an undergrad in bio? And she was like, nothing. And I was like, oh wow, like,
I have nothing.
She just has like an interest in that stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's talk about that. So neuroscience and architecture and interior design. What the hell is going on there? Is there a relationship between those two things?
Well, we understand that our different environments affect the brain in different ways.
Right.
And honestly, like when you walk into a cathedral or like a place like Moon, or you walk into the most beautiful place you've ever been in, crazy gardens, things like that, it actually spurs neurogenesis within the brain, which is the creation of new brain cells and neural activity. And when you change your environment, you change your brain. And when you change your brain, you change your behavior. And so sort of flexing that theory and like getting the science behind that. And there are people who are really focused on a lot of really like minute things that like once proven, like once these hypotheses and theories are proven, they trickle down into design theory. And so my goal is to understand as much of these findings as possible so that I can implement them for people, for better health, because I really take the responsibility of public health to heart as a designer.
Right.
Which really sets me apart from other designers.
Yeah. So if you have that science to back up what it is you do already, you're like, okay, this is what I think, but don't take it from me. Here's what's actually happening in your brain when you walk into like an amazing like Zen garden or like this amazingly holistically designed built-in environment, your house, your home, your bedroom, living space. And you're like, here's the evidence, you know? And they're like, probably like, wow, like this actually, there's a science to this, right?
Right.
There's a science to everything. We can scientificize. I don't know why that word's coming to my mind. Make everything scientific. And then that's the evidence for the claims that we make. And people want to hear that too.
Yeah. I mean, I think so. Also, some people are just like, hey, I just need a new couch. Like, I just need a new couch because this couch is gonna, change my life.
Right.
I just need to buy this one thing.
Right.
I just want to change the color in here. Like, can you just help me? Like, a lot of those people who are like, hey, I just want to do this, like they don't bless them. And also they don't necessarily realize how much they are affected by their environment. And like they're like, oh, you know what? I just feel uncomfortable in here. I don't know what it is. I'm gonna replace the couch. They don't realize actually they need more sunlight and better air quality and more, or air circulation. And they need to make it so that they can actually walk through their space and not run into their coffee table every time they get up and things like that. I'm not criticizing.
No,
you. I'm not criticizing you.
You brought up a great point, because what I do sometimes is I move this coffee table that maybe you guys can see a little bit, and I just put it maybe inside in the bedroom, or just move it there so that this space just becomes this gigantic space. And all of a sudden, everything shifts in my mind. Like, I had my friend over, this girl, we were like dancing. She was like, oh, like she was like a dancer. I was like, oh, you want to dance? I just moved this table there and we started to do salsa dance here in this space. And I don't dance salsa. I don't claim to know how to dance salsa.
Oh, you do now.
But I do now after she taught me. And it really changed how it felt. So yeah, like having space to walk, like that's something I noticed that like is really nice to have, because objects are nice and all, but like if you have too many objects and if they're placed weirdly, if you can't move, you don't have that space, not just externally but internally as well.
Yeah.
And as always, the external translates internally.
Sure, for sure. That reflection. Oh, I'm so glad that you've had that experience. I'm so glad you had that girl over.
Yeah.
To twirl you around.
She twirled me around like a freaking pony. But besides that, you guys only want to hear about my salsa dancing experience, right?
I do. I'm the only one.
Yeah. So you mentioned a lot of things. You mentioned sunlight. We just talked about space. You mentioned air quality. Anything else?
I think the social aspect. We can move into the social aspect.
Yeah, let's talk about the social aspect of the well-designed space.
Sure.
What does that entail to have it optimized for social gatherings and communication?
Yeah. So well-designed spaces, holistic spaces, are designed specifically for the social function of what's going on, the space you want to hold for people, right?
Right.
When you move that table, you wanted to hold space for this girl to move, right? And to bloom. That's awesome. Shout out to that girl. And then
shout out to that.
Like for my moon,
yeah,
I really wanted to highlight the social interaction between the staff and the people at the bar, the people walking in, the people ordering, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's different elements at different levels, like literally, like height wise.
Mm-hmm.
The bar, like you're kind of up above, like you really feel connected to service. You really feel held. And you know that whatever you need, your needs are met there.
Mm-hmm.
And that like on a very I don't know, like on a very primal level, just really helps you to like bloom in so many ways. If you feel held by someone, like every need that you know is met, you can change the world. You can take over the world, or whatever. It just really supports whatever blog you're writing or something, like while you're sitting there. That's one example of like how I really took the social implications of that. Or you look at like, let's think of like a big atrium. Like if you go into one of those hotels where it's like every level has a balcony and you can look over down into like the main lobby and like where things are happening. It's like you'll never lose your friends because you know that they're either in their room over there or they're downstairs, in the lounge, or they're chilling. You can see where everything's happening.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, you feel invited to go down there,
right,
and to be with those people.
Right.
The Salk Institute is designed in a very similar way almost, where there's offices, and like it's designed by Louis Kahn, which is, you know, one of the greatest architects to ever live. And that site is so prolific and it's just so beautiful because you have the sunset right there. You're overlooking Black's Beach, right? And, yeah, you know, all that. So blessed, so rich. And not just like money rich, but like rich in Mother Nature, rich in that
the richest kind,
those negative ions, and just like the ocean hitting the beautiful cliffs.
For those maybe listening, negative ions aren't a bad thing; they're good. Negative meaning good. They're just the charge of their charge is negative, but they actually make you feel relaxed and put your body into a parasympathetic state. Any natural body of water will do that. But just wanted to clarify because negative ions can kind of be like, oh.
But it's even more special there.
Yeah.
It's even more special there because the sea is protected, like not too far from there. So there's a lot of biodiversity. Mm-hmm. The wind right there. That's why they have the glider port there, because the wind is great. Just the way it like curves around that big body of land mass, and the way it hits the cliffs and things is just really beautiful, right? And like the way that place is designed, first of all, it's designed for the channel, the water in the middle to lead out to the sunset, but also, you know, and beyond, like into the ocean. It's like everything is like overflowing there, but it also holds space for the people who are up in these offices to sort of like look down and see, okay, hey, everybody's going to lunch. Let's go to lunch. Or everybody, you know, it's like there's a gathering, there's a big concert. Like you can see from the spaces in the Salk Institute, like socially what's going on. There's also like, as long as we're talking about Dr. Sachin Panda, he actually works in the basement of the Salk Institute. So he doesn't get a lot of sunlight, which kind of I feel for him. Isn't it ironic? Freaking ironic. But that's how he knows how valuable it is.
He's like, trust me, I'm in a dungeon. Like, you guys need light. Like, bro, get out there, man. Get some sunlight.
He gets out. Like I
for sure. Think, I mean, you would hope so.
Yeah.
He's a freaking circadian researcher living in the dungeon of the Salk Institute.
Well, I mean, but that's the thing too. A lot of their stuff has to be sort of under lock and key and
right.
So
and like, labs and stuff usually like down there, like away from like external influence that they want to keep things under control. They're running experiments and things. So it kind of makes sense.
Yeah. And just, I mean, we're talking about social interactions, right?
Right. Exactly.
I feel like if you want to be able to hold space for circles of people who are like having a fire in the middle and who are, you know, dancing and chanting, and like what sort of space needs to be created to hold space for that? You know what I mean? Right. And like thinking about it, okay, so is the space round in general because you want people to circle up? Is there a center atrium? Does it have access to the ocean? Like these sorts of questions is like I really want people to ask themselves and to ask me, you know, as a designer, but also just like the next time you have the ability to create space, not just for yourself, but, you know, like in your yoga studio or out in nature, it's like taking these, like the social interactions into account.
Right.
As well as the air quality, the quality of light, and all these things, the water quality.
Is there a way to do the social interaction holistically? Like, is there something that would distinguish your regular coffee shop from one that is more intentionally designed?
Socially?
Because, you know, there's like, I feel like, you know, every place is different. You brought up different contexts. The Salk Institute, my home, Maya Moon, Cacao Cafe, very different. But like, what would distinguish a place like Maya Moon, socially speaking, from like another place where it's like they also want to emphasize people sitting and talking at the coffee table at Lestat's, or, you know, I don't want to compare Lestat's, just your regular Starbucks, for instance. what would distinguish that from Maya Moon, a more, let's say, intentionally designed place, from the aspect of like socially speaking?
I feel like some Starbucks are very social. And like people meet each other and they talk to each other and then they chat. I think it's really about the balance between the people who are running the show, the people who are working there, and like just like the overall point of sale, between like the emphasis, like the spatial emphasis on where people are hanging out and dwelling. So it's like you want your eye to look at, I mean, people are already going to look at the point of sale and they're going to figure out how to get their coffee because they want their coffee, right? They're going to figure out how to get their cacao because they want their cacao, right? You know, they're going to figure that out. But it's like also not putting the brand over everything.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like the brand sort of exists without having to be like in your face. Like, this is Maya Moon and that's it. It's like, no, this is your neighborhood coffee shop. You don't even have to live here for this to be your neighborhood coffee shop where you can feel comfortable.
That's so true.
And, you know, and be yourself, because you don't feel like the person at the counter is looking at you like, what, thinking, oh, they haven't bought anything in 3 hours. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're just sitting here.
Yeah, and you painted such a picture of like Starbucks being like, let's say, the prime example of this, of like everywhere you look, it's Starbucks, it's that sign, it's like my cup, everything is that. Whereas like Maya Moon, it's like maybe there's like the sign on the entrance, and then everything else is subtle, like welcome to the space. This is your space. You know, it's almost like gifting the people who are coming, the drinkers of cacao, to like inhabit the space and make it their own, right? And I see that, and I guess that's something I didn't really notice about the difference between Starbucks and Maya Moon.
It's something that's just kind of bloomed, because originally I had designed for more signage. We wanted a big sign outside. Like we wanted to, because nobody knew who we were. I say we because once I design a space, I'm just a part of it.
Of course
it just happens.
Of course.
It happened.
You're baked in.
With the office I did up in Carlsbad recently. Like, I'm just a part. I get their team emails. Okay, team, we're having an event. Like, I'm just on the team. It just happens. So like, and like I said, it's been years since I designed Maya Moon. So for me, it's crazy that we're still talking about this.
Yeah.
I still show up and like I'm still, celebrated there.
It's a hit.
It's a hit, man.
Another high five.
I mean, shout out to Catherine. She is the one. She is talk about alchemy.
Yeah, she's the owner of Maya Moon Collective. Such a leader, such an entrepreneur, such a holder of intention. She has guided me through like cacao ceremonies and different events at Maya Moon. They have like these events, and yeah, like if you meet her, you're like, wow. The more you hang out with Catherine, the more you're like, oh, like she's about it. Like she's really about it.
She has the power to turn you on, and I don't mean that like just sexually. Yeah. Like I mean like vibrationally and
activate.
Super activated.
What does she do that you felt like activated you as a person?
She really held space for like professionalism and like contractually and just like professionally, I like in a way that I wasn't really expecting, because I mean, when I met Catherine, it was professionally, but at the same time, it was with cacao. And so whenever I've done a cacao ceremony, it's with a bunch of hippies, they've all been rolling around for 2 hours on the ground doing yoga. And we're just, we're in the flowers, we're in the trees. And it's really like barefoot hippie shit, right? But like with Catherine, she was so grounded in a way where she really holds space for both the hippie dippy trippy, be who you want to be, like that sort of thing, but also be free, and also for the, hey, let's actually make this happen. And how do we do that? It's by honoring each other and like meeting each other, like, and supporting each other in our needs. And she is so inspirational as an entrepreneur herself, that I'm so grateful that she was my first client, because she really helps and has helped. She has helped me and continues to help me to really show up for myself professionally and in a really organized way.
Yeah.
And that is something, like, to be like type A, like game peeps game, like, for real. And like she's just oh man, Catherine, my love.
Oh. I want to bring her on the podcast.
I miss her now.
Yeah,
like, look what you did.
I want to be around her. That's her aura, man, and that's so cool. It sounds like she really painted that, like, both the hippy dippy side that she brings to the table, which she does have a super hippy dippy, trippy, weird, fun, like exuberant, like and then the community, and then the professional, like, business side of thing. Like, she's a businesswoman. Like, she's willing to make deals, to like negotiate, to put her thoughts and her wonderful creative ideas into action, into tangible things that you can actually work with. And I think that's such a valuable, it's almost like the masculine feminine. I don't use those words as much anymore, because I feel like labeling something as solely masculine loses its meaning, and someone else might call it feminine, but it's like that duality of like those two poles of forces like coming into contact. And I think like a person like Catherine really represents that, and I think it inspires me as well to do that, to tap into those sides in myself. And we all have it, I think, like those two sides, and carrying both of those can make us both successful business holders, entrepreneurs, but also like in our personal interpersonal relationships. I think they go hand in hand.
Sure, for sure. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I can't believe I'm still talking about my moon. It's something I did. Like, it was like literally my first project.
That was your first project. That's, by the way, that's like, it's not an easy feat. Like, but it went amazing. Like, so like, obviously congratulations.
Thank you.
But also like, like just any reflections about that being your first one.
I mean, I wish I could do it again and again and again and again, for different different programs, different sectors, different verticals, because I really feel like everyone should be able to be held in space like that, where they really feel, one, like they belong, and two, like that they can be productive in, because so much work happens there. And not just,
you wouldn't know,
we're not just slanging cacao in that space,
pulling tarot.
Deals are being made, we're not just pulling tarot, we're not just doing a full moon circle. It's like deals are being made, hands are being shaken, connections are being, it's like there's a real spider web of things happening there, but like a positive spider web, like a spider web you see at dawn that has the little dew and like the rain droplets from the night before. It's just reflecting in the sunlight.
Yeah.
It's like golden.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, I cannot believe like we're still talking about this project, and also I cannot wait to help another woman entrepreneur step into her first brick and mortar, because those are the people who I really want to see grow, because those are the people who hold the vision for what's to come. What Catherine did, other people can do too. And I was just happy to be there to empower her. And I'm so happy to empower the next person and the next person, because that's the thing. When women are empowered, everyone wins. They say that society is only as good as the women in that area. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because when their dreams come into fruition, everybody benefits from it. Everybody benefits from it. The men too.
Why do you think that is?
because women are in a lot of ways, like, they're maternal and nurturing, and they're selfless, and yeah, they're selfless in a lot of ways, and so they're able to really dream up things that sort of go beyond the status quo, sort of, and they're able to see things from a lot of different angles, because a lot of the times they're like, I guess, behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Women are, they say that a strong man is always, there's always a strong woman behind them.
Yeah.
Behind them.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm a feminist, but like,
right.
also I'm all for men too. Like, they're
yeah.
cool. I'm for all of us winning.
Yes, absolutely.
And like,
I think women need to win.
Women need
we
to
we
win.
need women to win. We need to put women on the forefront in many ways. And I also think that feminism has been like, if you will, what's the word? Captured by people with other agendas, and it gets lost in like maybe people who are like just exuding their traumas and in ways which is totally a valid experience for them.
Mhm.
But I feel like women empowerment is what you're talking about, is putting women in positions where they can succeed and make change and apply themselves in a nurturing way, in a leadership way. And we need, like, besides the women and the men, we need nurturing qualities to be infused into our spaces and into our lives. And I think that if we do that, then we take care of women, and they take care of us, and it just builds for a better society. And yeah, taking care of ourselves is I think the priority, and we need to be doing that.
Yeah. I'm ready for women to step from behind the veil, from behind their man, from, because at the end of the day, they probably know just as much as the man does, and because it's a joint venture. And it's like, if you're a guy and you have a partner who's a woman, and you block your woman from stepping up into, helping with the family business, or helping, and just like helping you out in general, and you don't listen to her advice and things like this, it's like, or at least have the conversations, then you're shooting yourself in the foot, because not only does she see what you're going through, she sees your perspective, she sees the perspective of your competitors, she sees it all. Women are so intuitive. Super intuitive.
I think it's that feeling aspect that maybe women have that a lot of men have too.
Sure.
I think women are more tapped in that regard of like just feeling things. Like,
yeah, they can be if they choose to be.
If they choose to.
Right.
But maybe they get lost in our society where like
in the sauce.
They get lost in the sauce. It's your favorite like aphorism, I feel.
I
like
think I'm hungry. I think this is what it is.
She wants some sauce. She wants some pasta. You guys hear that? Alfredo?
No.
Bread sauce?
For pasta?
Yeah.
I like a vodka sauce.
A vodka sauce?
Yeah. Vodka sauce is good. I love pesto.
Ooh.
Yeah.
All right. Maybe we'll keep that on mind for after we finish. But yeah, they get lost in our society and their intuitive sense of feeling what is right. And we're so caught up in here in our minds that we're not in touch with our heart, and our heart is constantly feeling everything, right? And it wants to feel everything. And I think we need to allow that to happen. And also, women, just to speak more about that, women also have the capability of bearing children, which is something obviously men can't do. And I think that taking care of women also includes taking care of children. And if we take care of our children, well, these are the people who are going to raise us up after we raise them up. Like, you raise a child and then they become the bearers of, they hold the key to changing everything. And, we're seeing a lot of kids nowadays that are just lacking in a lot of ways. But the main thing that they're lacking love, I think.
And connection.
And connection.
Real connection. They try and squeeze it out of the tablet.
Yeah. ADHD, ADD, autism, defiant disorder. Well, first of all, it's like, why are you putting kids in a freaking classroom for like 8 hours a day? Like, and the whole structure was designed because, you know, parents, dad got to go to work, and so got to put your kids somewhere while mom's, you know, this conventional like cleaning the house or doing these things, and then the kids are stuck in this seat, which they're not even meant to be sitting down on a chair. Like, chairs are a very new invention. Like, not too long ago, we didn't even have chairs to think about that.
Yeah.
And so then you get these illnesses, and we wonder why kids have all these disorders that we mentioned. And then we try to treat it with a pill. And it's like, it just does not help. Alternatively, like on the positive side, what we can do, I think, is if we reward kids for just being outside, like send them outside, like send them to nature, have them outside, and, you know, give them the love and support that they need. And that involves helping the parents, right? Helping the mother, because, you know, a healthy mother will be a healthy child, because you pass on these qualities. Like, I don't know if you have any children, or if you plan on having children in the future. Yeah. It's like that healing work that we're doing to like come in contact with ourselves is going to be transmitted to our kids. And I'm so excited for that, because I'm like, man, I've done so much fucking healing. Like, I can't wait to like love my fucking kid, you know?
Yeah.
And my parents love me, but they also maybe fell short in many ways, you know? And I think that you learn from what they did right and what they did wrong.
Sure.
We all do from each other, you know? And yeah, I think we can build such a better society. And I'm really excited. I want to raise a kid, and I want to teach them that they can love themselves and do it in a way that a kid would understand, right? Because you can't tell a kid like, let me read you the Bhagavad Gita or the Bible and the Quran, and let's see what you think. And the kid's like, what?
I want to go outside.
Hey, I want to go play outside with my friends. I want to play soccer with Timmy. Go outside, play soccer with Timmy, Little John. I don't know why Timmy and John. Little John. No, not Little John and the East Side Boys. Yeah, not the guy who get low to the window, to the wall. No, that's not the Little John that I'm talking about.
Okay.
We can make it. Can you pick another name just so we can?
Let's say Little Maven.
Little Maven.
Marvin. How do you pronounce your name?
That's so funny. Okay, so you just call me Maven. My name is Mazen.
Mazen!
With a Z. But my favorite weed strain, or the company that makes my favorite weed strains, is Maven.
Okay.
So
Mazen.
You weren't exactly wrong when you said Maven. Like, you were wrong, but like, that's another conversation.
Sorry, everybody. I'm doing my best.
Little Mazen. Damn. Yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna call my kid like Mazen Jr.
I think we're talking about your inner child at this point. But I have this theory where I only really talk to myself as I would talk to my kid.
Oh, I love that.
At this point, that's something that I implement, a practice that I implemented like within the last 5 years.
Right.
And so, like, you know how people will say, bitch, you know, I'm a guy, you know, bitch, like, and they're talking to whomever is there. Girl, like, I try and talk to myself in a way that, so that when I do talk to my kid, you know, just off the cuff, I'm not like, bitch, what are you doing?
Right,
you know?
Right.
Because I don't want to do that.
That's so interesting. I was talking about the word bitch specifically recently, and with my friend, and I want to hear what you think about this. Was like, you know how we say it exactly like you're saying, like jokingly, like, bitch, like, how could you, like, you know, not in like a misogynistic way, but like, you know, just in like a playful, funny way. But then the person I was talking to was like, yeah, I don't know if that's the best thing. Like, do you wanna, even if you're saying it in a playful way, like, does it still hold that same frequency? That probably isn't the best idea. So is that what you're saying? Like, do you avoid saying the word bitch, or I don't know, like,
I don't like to be called bitch. And even like, and people will say it really lovingly and like really like just funny and just like in a way to like connect.
Yeah.
And also, I don't correct people like as probably as much as I could, but it's like I don't talk to myself like that because, and we touched on this a little earlier before the mics even came on. My mother can only love me as much as she loves herself. My mother is going to talk to me, spoken to me as she speaks to herself. You know, and we don't know what people say to themselves in the shadows. We don't know people's inner dialogue all the time. And so I really want to make my inner dialogue to myself as positive as I can be, because I have to love myself first before I can love anybody else. And when we talk about loving our kids and, you know, really showing up for them and really showing up in ways that our parents couldn't for us, it starts within, right? We have to cultivate that before we can share it. Right. And so I do my best to, you know, forgive myself and to really say, yeah, we can do that. We can do that. Like, yeah, it's okay. Like I say to myself all the time, it's okay. It's okay. Aww. Like all the time. It's like,
that's so beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
It's like that inner child, right?
Yeah,
it's that same.
For sure. Mothering myself.
Yeah.
I started mothering my mother.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's funny. Really? It's funny how that changes, huh?
For sure.
When your mother was your mother and now you are your mother's mother.
Yeah.
It's just.
When was the last time you fathered your father?
That's a good question.
You don't have to answer. That could be hypothetical.
Well, I mean, it's interesting. My father is a very fathery father, I guess, in the conservative sense. Like he's very much like
he's a man's
man. You know, he makes the decisions, whatever. He's an awesome guy, very loving, compassionate dude. You know,
sure.
But like, yeah, it's like his cognitive abilities are like unmatched. You know, just his ability to like conceptually, like mathematically make things very efficient. He's a very efficient guy, very time-oriented guy.
Yeah.
You know, and I learned that a lot from him, and I'm so grateful for that, just because like it sets me up for success in a lot of ways, especially in our like society of how we live. But now as like time has passed, you know, we kind of talk to each other, and it's like I meet him at that like pinnacle. We're not like battling in a way. It's not a battle, but it's more like we like it's like you know, let's say we're just, you know, planning my trip back to Lebanon. He's like, yo, you should come at this date. I'm like, actually this trip might be a little better. He's like, oh no, I don't think. And then we like go into it and just like back and forth of like finding the best solution in the most efficient way. And then I feel like it's almost like a competitive, but not like a serious competitive thing. It's just more like, you know, two forces coming together to better the outcome for all.
For sure.
Yeah. So I feel like I'm able to do that more with him nowadays. And that just involves me maturing as a man, as a person, and him. Woo, we lost the mic. As a man, as a person, and like recognizing, and him also recognizing like, oh, like he like my son is the real deal. Like he's got some shit to him, you know. He's got some real sauce to him. Again with the sauce.
You got that sauce.
We got the sauce.
I love it.
So yeah, you know, it's funny how that comes around, you know, once your parents get older.
For sure. I have time for like one more question.
Okay, yeah, I was wondering like what your time was, so I got you. So to kind of conclude things here, I want to ask you something about love.
Oh, yeah.
We talked a lot about spaces and what's important for a space. What would you say, what would you leave advice for someone who wants to curate their space from a place of love?
Wow.
Where do they start?
Ooh. They start within. For sure. And they have that conversation with themselves of when so many questions, right? But I think it starts with analyzing. Maybe it's not analyzing, it's feeling like under what circumstances do they feel love? For me, like when you ask that question, okay, now I want to talk about love, I immediately thought of my father. My father is wonderful. I mean, maybe it's because you're talking about your father too, but my father is someone who he passed this past September 2023. Yom Kippur, he died. And he was always my go-to person to talk about love. Like whatever I was going through, like, oh my God, this guy never texted me back. You know, whatever it is. Ay, mija, don't worry about them. You know, they weren't worth, you know, they weren't worthy anyway, you know, that sort of thing. And I always think about my dad and how he would listen without judgment, and how he would reflect back to me, like how what I said made him feel, and how, and like what he would do and what he's done in those situations. And so for me, if I were to design a space for love for myself, it would sort of reflect that family history, and it would incorporate things that help me to think about where I learned love from in the first place. So, you know, in a more literal sense, pictures of my family, and pictures of my family close to a mirror so that I can see myself, so I can see myself amongst them, even though I live alone. So that's something really literal, but it's also something that gets to the basis of my being, right?
Right.
Literally, physically, all of it, emotionally, all of it.
Right.
So I would start there. But I think I think that doing, and like kind of reiterating this point of doing things with intention, sort of like surrounding yourself with the things, not just the things that you love right now, but the things that loved you as well. The things that help to show you what love is. And so once you have that established, once you know what that is, it's about amplifying that in every corner if you can, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, I remember I fell in love with this guy and we dated for a while, and then he got deported. He got arrested first, and then he got deported. And during that time of a couple years, I was so in love with him that I would think of him most when I was taking care of myself. So when I was washing my face, when I was snuggling up in bed and tucking myself in, when I was, you know, making sure my hair was tied up the right way to set me up for success the next day, I thought of this guy.
Yeah.
And but it's like all those things, good one, all those things like really help me to move around my space in a way that helped me to remind myself that I was loved. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think if you want to design a space from a loving place within, it's about reflecting on, one, where you learned to love in the first place, and two, like those things, like those self-care things that help you to feel love for yourself, for the people who have loved you in the past, and for the people who will love you now and in the future. And so I think it's that designing for that self-care routine and making sure that you're healthy. And self-care isn't just your skincare routine. It's not just, you know, the thread count of the sheets on your bed. It's also about the organic food that's in, you know, on your countertop. It's in your fridge. It's the food that you're cultivating out in the garden. It's the low VOC paint on your walls. It's the couch that you bought secondhand, but then had it reupholstered in like the best fabric you could find, for yourself.
Yeah.
And so I think once we are able to love ourselves, it really shows on all our walls, on the floor, in the lighting, the sunlight that comes through our windows. It's about self-love and honoring how we learned love in the first place.
That's so beautiful. I'm kind of awestruck by that response, honestly. Because it's, it's like, where do you get, when you were talking about like, where do I get my love? Of course, I thought about my parents.
Sure.
My mom, big time. Ultimately, though, it's like, it's from God. That's what's the source of everything. That's the source of love. It's there. And that's nature too. God is nature. Again, allowing the light in, right? So again, such a beautiful, beautiful response. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes.
This was really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to plug your stuff. I want people to know how to find you, social media, website, all of that. Where can people find Steffi?
SteffiHolistica.com. That's Steffi, SteffiHolistica.com. Steffi.holistica on Instagram. And reach out. Reach out if you have any questions, if you have any comments about what was said here. Please reach out, and I'm happy to have conversations. And also, if you need a resource, I'm happy to point you in the right direction. I'm happy to talk to you about your space, if you need a transformation, and like no matter where you are in that process, I'm happy to hold space for you in that. Also, I want to talk about your next big project. If you have any renovations that you're planning or that you're in the middle of, like, let's talk about that. Let's talk about entrepreneurialism. Let's talk about organic farming. Let's talk about, the medical science. Let's talk about neuroscience. Let's talk about the Salk Institute. Let's talk about all of it. Please get in touch.
About pasta sauce.
Yes. Food, especially. Let's talk about fasting. Let's talk about water. Let's talk about it. And I'm happy to hold space.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Steffi, for coming on. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And all you guys listening or watching, thank you so much. We'll see you guys soon.
Peace out.